Hi CPUT students, and welcome to your next lesson of Academic Literacy 2 for Term 3 of Semester 2 2021 for Wednesday the 28th of July 2021's lesson. Okay, let's do a quick recap of last week's lesson and areas that you had to do some learning on. We looked at the different research methods, right, that one can use when investigating a topic of research. And the three that we mentioned was a qualitative research method, a quantitative, and then a mixture of the two known as mixed methods. And the task you had to do for last week was to review the article that was sent to you, read it, and summarize each method. So the article reviewed all three methods, and you had to summarize them using a limit of 100 words per method. And you had to then save this and keep it as a build-up task towards your second semester formative assignment, which will be coming later on in the term. For today's lesson, we will continue. So, once you have determined what type of research method you are going to use, how are you going to collect your information, right? You now need to find out from who you will be collecting your information. And this is known as your population and sample. Now, your population and sample speaks to who you are going to choose, why you are choosing them, and how many. When we speak of many, we're speaking of people or things. How much, you are looking at numbers, right? So this, how much, would really work well with quantitative. If you did your reading and your research, you will know quantitative deals with numeric and qualitative deals with spoken word or what people have to say. Right, so your population, in summary, is basically everybody that you are looking at. So if you look at the simple picture, this is everybody. But out of everybody, you're only going to choose this one person to gather information from. So that is, who is that person? Why have you chosen them? And why have you only taken one? Okay. A population is a large collection of individuals, people, or objects, animals, things. So different researchers look at different objects of research. So within education, the main object is people, right? Individuals. And that's the main focus of the query or research. This is the reason why researchers rely on sampling techniques, because you are not able to ask each and every person the same question. Apart from it being time consuming, you are going to get what's known as an overflow of information, which is not really needed when you are drawing a conclusion in research, when you are making findings. So what researchers do is they rely on sampling techniques, right, which we will discuss now, to gather only a few people, which is then known as your sample. Now, the research population is also known as a well-defined collection of individuals, right, who are known to have similar characteristics. So, similar characteristics could either be they are all of the same age, they are all females or all males, they all are located in South Africa or in Western Cape. So there's different characteristics that will attract you to a certain group of people to find out certain information. And all this is based on your research that you are doing. Okay. Now your research sample is then a smaller group of people or objects taken from the larger population. The sample would then be a representative, right? So think of your class. If you have a whole classroom of people and they choose one class rep, that one person is speaking for the whole class, right? So think of it in the same way. The whole class is the population, and the one class rep, that's your sample. And when you find out things from the sample, you can then generalize these findings to the whole population. Okay, so the purpose of sampling is to save time and energy. And then for quantitative, the sample is usually larger. And for qualitative, the sample is usually smaller. Here are two cool videos to show you the difference between population and sample. The first video, you can watch the full length, short, it's about 3 minutes. And the second video is also about 3-4 minutes, but only the first 1 minute and 52 seconds is really important. You can stop after 1 minute and 52 seconds. Now, this simple drawing shows you exactly what today's lesson is about. There's the population, it's all the individuals. You took a certain process to select your sample. So this process we won't really look at in detail, that you will cover in later years of your research journey. But for today, just understand that a population is the larger group. You use a method to filter out who you would like to use as your sample. Okay, now we all, I hope you have heard about the POPI Act, the Protection of Personal Information. When it comes to researching and getting information from a population or a sample, you have to get their consent. Consent means permission. You have to get their permission before you actually do research on them. They have to know why you are doing the research, what's the purpose, what is the information going to be used for. Are you going to use their name and say, this one said so? So you have to get their permission, and that is known as an informed consent, right? Now that is for the protection of you, the researcher, and the participant. Okay, so you can read this little short piece of why the POPI Act actually exists, and you can pause the video at this point. Now, today's lesson is again quite short, but what you have to do for your task will be, you have to identify, and you can select any 5 of your classmates, right? 5 friends as your sample, not your population, your sample. Remember, the whole class is the population. You get to choose 5 people from the full class as your sample. You need to record their details, their name, their surname, etc. And then also indicate why you have chosen these 5 people as your sample. Now, the question sounds easy, but you have to relate this to your research. So if you did research on, for example, say bullying at schools or ICT, you will take 5 people that has the same interest as you. So that could be a reason for selecting them. They share the same research interest. So you wouldn't take somebody that has no interest in your studies, right? Because you won't get valuable information from them. Then part 2, you have to design a simple consent form. Now you don't need to design it from scratch. I will provide you with a template. And again, there's no deadline for this, but it would be great if you complete it before the next lesson, which is next week, Wednesday. This is a build-up task leading up to your final formative assessment at the end of the term. You have to type your work and save it. Remember, the later you start with your work or the later you leave it for, that equals problems. The prescribed template that you will use looks like this. Let me move this out of the way. So it will be your name and surname, your student number, and the date in the same format, day, month, and year in the header. Then you have 3 paragraphs. Now why there's red, you have to take this out. This is just instructions, right? You have to replace this with information. And what do you have to do? In paragraph 1, you have to indicate the researcher's details or information. Let's put details. So this will be you. You have to introduce yourself. Who are you? Your name, your surname, your student number. Where are you studying? Cape Peninsula University. and what are you studying, what's your qualification, and finally your contact details. Then in paragraph 2, you will indicate your research purpose. Why are you doing this research? So basically you are telling the person what your research aims to do and what their contribution will be. So for example, you could say that I am doing research on bullying in education, and your input will help me understand the problem better. Simple, very simple. One sentence to two sentences in that paragraph. Then the last paragraph, paragraph 3, you have to indicate a short statement, only 3 sentences. You have to inform your participant, right? The person that's going to give you data. You have to tell them that they can volunteer, they can refuse to take part, or they can accept to take part in your research. If they accept, you need to have a section at the bottom for their signature and the date. So it could be something simple as sign, and then a simple line like that, and then date, and a simple line. So they have helped you out with that. So the paragraph over here will then just indicate that they can voluntarily take part, they can refuse, and then next you have to indicate that their information or their identity will remain anonymous and confidential, and that the information will only be used in a safe manner for research. Remember the POPI Act? So this is basically all to do with the POPI Act over here. First part again, introduce yourself, who you are, where you're studying, what you're studying, and your contact details. Secondly, why are you doing this research, and how will the person's contribution help you? And if you're thinking, what research am I doing? This is all linked to your assignment 1 from semester 1. You all chose a topic, you all did a literature review, so that is the research that you are doing. And the third paragraph is the consent. They can take part or not. The information will be private, anonymous, and confidential. And if they accept, they must sign and put the date. Then, your full population is 228. That's all the students for second year in 2021. Your sample will only be 5. In this table over here, you have to record your 5 people. So you have to choose 5 classmates, you insert their names over here, their surnames, their student numbers, and over here, because you are keeping them confidential and anonymous, you're not saying who they are. In your research, you have to provide a code. So you can say A1, A2, A3, A4, A5. Or you can say B1, B2. You can choose any participant code you like, just so that when you do your next assignment, you won't say, so I'll put in an example for you. I'll take it out again. Participant's name is Lucy, surname is Lou, student number is whatever that, and the code I'm going to give is A2. So in a later assignment, when you talk about Lucy, you won't say Lucy said, you would say participant A2 said blah blah blah. Participant A3 said participant A4. Okay, so you're giving them code names. So you won't be using their real names, but in this table, you have to tell me who they are and what code you have given them. Okay, so I'm taking out that example over there. There we go. And this will be your template that you will use. If you provide your work in any other template, it will not be marked. And then at the end, indicate why you have chosen these 5 participants in your research. So you could say that, they have an interest in your study field and what your study field is. So indicate why have you chosen these 5 individuals. And that is your task for next week. Excellent. Right, remember, no deadline, but the later you wait will equal problems. And please use the prescribed template. Thank you for attending today's lesson. If you are watching this video, that's cool. If not, then the link that will be here will be for your YouTube video link for this lesson. I look forward to receiving any queries, your tasks, and your feedback. And remember, solution before problem or excuses.